Okay, so let's take a look at this passage. Harold Ikes, I am an American Day. Okay, so while it shows up, let's talk about this. 1941. When is this? What do you need to think about when it says 1941? Okay. Yeah. So around World War II, right? So around the time of World War II. So you need to think about that. You need to be thinking in terms of that. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, just gonna wait till it shows up. So what can happen in history passages? Something that can potentially waste a lot of your time is you not organizing the information or you not annotating the passage enough. So when it asks you like a really specific question, so if the question stem is really specific, and then it's gonna give you like a line reference question right after this. And a lot of students waste time like this. So usually what happens, I feel like you guys went through this at least once. That feeling when you when they're asking you a question, it can be specific, it could be general. You have no idea what it is, like because it's too specific. So what you start doing is you go through the answer choices and you just start looking them one by one. And you're just distilling the information here, going back and forth. So that's something that we don't want happening, okay? So in order for us to do that, you need a system in which you could annotate the passage better when you are reading it, okay? And certain information is gonna be more important than another, okay? I don't mean in terms of the main idea and the supporting arguments, but even for the supporting ideas, there's going to be relatively more important information. So for example, if a supporting information contains like a cause and effect or like a comparison, that's more likely to show up, okay? So that's why you want to always annotate the macros, micro stuff that we talked about. Why is this so? It is, right? Like compared to the one, I mean compared to earlier today. Oh, okay. So actually, I can't do anything about that. It's the passage. It's not the projector's fault, it's the passage's fault. So we would have to live with this. So just take a look at your passages also. So just look at what we're annotating, okay? So let's take a look. I want to ask a few simple questions and then I shall answer them. Okay, sounds good. Okay, I mean, doesn't mean anything though, right? What's happened to our vaunted idealism? What does vaunted mean? Okay, well, I mean, it's a really low frequency word, so you don't necessarily need to know this. It's something positive, right? What has happened to our vaunted idealism? Why have some of us been behaving like scared chickens? Okay, so what happened to our idealism? So who does it refer to when it says our? So I believe this is America, right? So Americans. What's happened to Americans' idealism? Why have been why are we so scared, right? I mean, chicken's just a figure of speech, like scared, right? So this is what he thinks the state is right now. Where's the million-throated democratic voice of America? Okay, so he feels like they're not being themselves, right? America's not being what it's supposed to be. So what are some of the things that America is supposed to be? I mean, you could say it's the idealism, the democratic voice, right? So that's these things are things that he deems is desirable, but we don't have that right now. That's what he's suggesting. So very, very simple, right? We need this, or we used to have this, but where is it? We don't have it, right? For years, it has been dinned into us, okay? Okay, dinned into us. What does this mean? It's a very low frequency word, very outdated also. That's probably why you don't understand this. Like, I mean, I see a lot of, like, I don't know, like tripe or something like that. You know, I mean, it's not gonna help. It's not gonna help, meaning like, even if you memorize this word, it's not gonna help you in the future. It's probably not gonna show up. So what you need to think about is looking at, I mean, you need to learn how to look at the context, right? For years, it has been dinned into us that we are a weak nation, okay? So, I mean, you kind of get the gist, right? So if you think about this in terms of what's happened before, right? He's saying, oh, we're like scared chickens, right? We're like scared chickens, and it's been dinned into us that we are a weak nation. Yeah, I get it. It's going along the same lines, right? That we are an insufficient people. Okay, I think I get it now. Now's the time to move on. You spotted that repetition. Now let's go. That we are simple-minded. Okay, for years we have been told that we are okay, come on, right? So these are all the negative connotations associated with what's happening presently with the United States, right? And then it says, some amongst us have fallen for this carefully pickled tripe. Okay, so this is actually, okay, so this tripe is actually a compressive noun here. So you know what this is. This whole thing that we've been talking about, right? Them, you know, them being dinned into, the thing that, I mean, the idea that they are a weak nation, that being pinned into them, that kind of thing. If this is actually like, it's really, what do you say? It's not even formal language. It's pretty colloquial, but it's pretty outdated. It means like garbage, trash, something like that, right? So we fell for this trash, right? That's what he's saying, right? That America's lost it, right? Some amongst us have fallen for this calculated poison. Okay, if you don't get this, you do get this, right? I mean, it is a repetition here, so you just need to get this. So this is how he characterizes this. He thinks this is a poison. Some amongst us have begun to preach that the wave of the future has passed over us and left us a wet, dead fish. Okay, so they're no longer part of the wave of the future. They're not the future of the world, but now they're like dead fish. Okay, so so far, I would say it's just one or two ideas, right? It's like, I mean, it can come down to this. We're no longer the wave of the future. People say, I mean, some people think we're wet, dead fish, right? Simple as that. I think I get it, okay? So I can move on. So you need to make that clear. Somehow visualize that, okay? Visualize that in your passage. Say to yourself, okay, you don't need to read this. Like, do something about it. Like, let your eye not come back to this ever again, right? Instead, just say, okay, so this whole thing is the recent negative connotation associated with the United States, or so what other people think of our nation, or what they're trying to make us think, right? And then it says, they shout from public platforms in printed pages through the microphones that is futile to oppose the wave of the future. Okay, so these people, you know, he does not agree with them. They cry that we Americans, we free Americans, nourished on Magna Carta and the Declaration of Independence, hold moth-eaten ideas, right? Okay, so they nourished on Magna Carta and the Declaration of Independence, right? So they grew up on this, but now they hold on to moth-eaten ideas, right? So still we're talking about this. They exclaim that there's no room for free men in the world anymore and that only the slaves will inherit the earth. Okay, so all this negativity. America, I mean, still the same. Like these people saying all of this. America, the America of Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln and Walt Whitman, they say, is waiting for the undertaker. Waiting for the undertaker means what? It's waiting to die, right? Or it's dead already, right? And all the hopes and aspirations they have gone into the making of America are dead too. They're all dead. That's what they say, right? All this American idealism, voice of democracy, it's gone. So how many lines is this? Like 29 lines, and it's just the same idea, right? Okay, so then you see in the next paragraph, it starts with the however, so now you want to focus, okay? However, my fellow citizens, this is not the real point of the story. Okay, there we go. So now he's going to start making his point. So the passage in essence kind of begins here, right? Before this is just kind of like a setup. It's just an opinion of others, right? The real point, the shameful point, is that many of us are listening to them. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is more nuanced, right? Okay, so the problem, the real problem, right? I mean, I won't say problem. The real point that he wants to make is that why are we listening to them? So many of us are listening to them, right? These people say all these negative stuff, but why do we believe that, right? Some of us almost believe them. Oh, okay, see, right? I say that it is time for the great American people to raise its voice and cry out in mighty triumph what it is to be an American. Okay, so this is his prescription, right? This is his counter argument to that. So he says, hey, in reaction to what's happening, what we need to do is we need to raise our voices and we need to cry out what it is to be an American. Then I have a question. Okay, so what do you mean exactly be an American? I mean, that itself is not clearly defined. It's kind of vague, okay? If he does define it, then that's the point of this passage. If he doesn't define it, then I could let that slip, you know? Okay, and why is it that only Americans, with the aid of our brave allies, the British, can and will build the only future worth having? Okay, okay. So okay, he's asking a question here, and then it says, I mean a future not of concentration camps, not of physical torture and mental straitjackets. Okay, so he's obviously you guys know what he's referring to. Not of sawdust bread or of sawdust Caesars. I mean a future when free men will live free lives in dignity and in security. Okay, so this is what he pursues, or what he thinks we should pursue as Americans. Okay, so this is what he thinks is ideal, right? We shouldn't listen to them, we should pursue this, right? The tide of the future, the democratic future, is ours. It is ours if we show ourselves worthy of our culture and of our heritage. Okay, so I would say, like, I would characterize this as, I mean, I'll just say, okay, ownership, right? It's ours, right? We own this, right? The tide of the future is ours, right? Future is on our side. It's our future. But make no mistake about it. Okay, make no mistake about it. Okay, so now it's kind of the rhetoric that we're used to saying, okay? Make no mistake about it. Have you guys heard this before? Let me not be misunderstood, something like that, right? Let me not be, do not be mistaken, or that kind of thing, right? What is it saying? It's clarifying and he's clarifying what he's trying to say and what he's not trying to say. Like, he doesn't want to mislead people into coming to the wrong conclusion, right? So this is a clarification. Make no mistake about it, the tide of the democratic future is not like the ocean tide, regular, relentless, and inevitable. So he's saying it's not like this. It's not like this. Nothing in human affairs is mechanical or inevitable. So it's not inevitable, nor are Americans mechanical. They are very human. So these are opposing ideas. It's not inevitable, right? We can do something about it. It's not mechanical. Okay, so I mean, I'm not sure if he's going to elaborate on this idea. Let's take a look. What constitutes an American? Okay, so this is his focus now, right? So this is early on. We did kind of sense this, that he is going to be defining what it means to be an American. And he blatantly gives us the guideline. So, I mean, we went over this, right? If a sentence ends with a question mark, it can either be making a point, right? Make a point, or a guideline, or attacking an opponent's view. Right? Basically, the start of a counter argument, right? Okay, so make a point. I mean, you're used to this. Okay, so all of these, by the way, rhetorical question, right? I'm talking more specifically about more specific functions of a rhetorical question. So making a point is just, instead of writing a sentence, he chose to emphasize it a little bit more using a question sentence structure. Or a guideline is introducing the information that's about to follow, and attack usually comes right after the opponent's point of view. It's saying, it's just saying, like, why would you think that? That's ridiculous, and then start his or her counter argument. Okay, so what constitutes an American? Not color, nor religion, not the pedigree, nor the place of his birth. Okay, it's not this. I don't need to know what's not this. Not his social status, not his trade, nor his profession. Okay, so I'm in for a treat. I don't need to read these like 4 lines, right? It's not about these. An American is one who loves justice. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what it means to be an American is to love justice and believes in the dignity of man. Okay, here we go. So these abstract ideas. An American is one who will fight for his freedom and that of his neighbor. Okay, we will fight. So fighting for his freedom. Right? So all of these are included in the definition of what it means to be an American. An American is one who will sacrifice property, ease, and security. All right, so we see a lot of definitions here. So while we're at it, what can we do? I think that we can number them, okay? So in your passage, you should number all of these. Say, okay, so what does it mean to be an American? So first of all, it's loving justice and respecting the dignity of human, and then fighting for freedom. And next one is one who will sacrifice property, ease, and security in order that he and his children may retain the rights of free men. Okay, so in order for freedom, sacrificing for freedom, right? An American is one in whose heart is engraved the immoral second sentence of the Declaration of the Independence. Okay, so do you know what the second sentence is? No, I don't know either. But I don't really care. I can let this go probably. It's not going to ask you, hey, what's that thing in the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence? They're not going to do that, okay? So I have these, right? Okay, I have these 3 definitions. Americans have always known how to fight for their rights and their way of life. Americans are not afraid to fight. They fight joyously in a just cause. Okay, so I'm just going to say this pertains to the second idea. It is technically a little bit different. You can say this is the 4th point. It's fine. You could do that. But anyway, you should be tying all of this into the definition of what it means to be an American. So let's say fight for a just cause. But technically, technically it's the same thing as 2 and 4. I would say 2 is included in 4. a little bit, but whatever, right? We'll just do it. We Americans know that freedom, like peace, is indivisible. Okay, freedom, indivisible. Okay, so now we're moving on to another idea. Okay, so freedom, indivisible. We cannot retain our liberty if if 3/4 of the world is enslaved. Okay, so what possibility is this talking about? It's about what's happening in Europe and Germany, right? In the beginnings of World War II. Brutality, injustice, and slavery, if practiced as dictators, would have them universally and systematically in the long run would destroy us. This would be a cause and effect, right? This plus this would equal to this, right? It's not something, he's not saying that this happened, right? He's saying that this will likely happen. In the long run, would destroy us as surely as a fire raging in our nearby neighbor's house would burn ours if we didn't help to put out his, right? Okay, so he's using this analogy, right? So what is he suggesting now? I feel like now we need to go fight in Europe, right? Because of this neighborhood thing, right? Neighbor's house is on fire. If you don't help him, then your house is going to be on fire. That's what he wants to get at, that analogy, right? Okay, so I feel like this passage, it might, so the trap that you can fall into is this. It all sounds the same, right? It all sounds the same. If you think it all sounds the same, you're not catching the different nuances or the rhetorics, okay? And in that case, you could potentially waste a lot of time on the line reference questions, especially, right? Because you didn't delineate all the ideas clearly, okay? So let's just try the main purpose. Okay, so main purpose, I'm not going to have any agenda. I'm not going to have a pre-phrase answer choice, right? Recall an idyllic time. What does idyllic mean? What does this mean? Yeah, something that, like a simple and carefree, like peaceful, that kind of thing, right? No, he didn't talk about any time in the past, right? He's just talking about how the present wasn't so good in the perspective of others and how some people are affected by it. And then he's saying, that's not being American. We need to be American, and then we need to help our neighbors, blah, blah, blah. Reveal the problematic nature of America's heritage. No. Well, first of all, heritage, you do need to know that it's a totally irrelevant idea. The only time heritage was mentioned was when he said heritage does not matter, right? It doesn't matter heritage is not what counts as American, right? It's the love of freedom, that's what he said. Inform Americans about an imminent event. Okay, so if he were to did anybody choose C here? Okay, if this were true, the passage would be rather more formal, less rhetoric. It would be more like, hey, this is what's happening in Europe right now. And if this were the case, eventually this kind of war would break out and then blah, 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 right? He would need to talk about that. But we didn't talk about anything concrete, any events, right? It's all very abstract, what he's talking about, right? Persuade Americans, yes, okay, to live up to their purported ideals. Yeah, that's what it is, right? Main focus. Okay, so main focus. Okay, A says, revealing apparent mystery. You should know that there is no mystery here. Pretending to mock a custom. No, he's not. He wasn't pretending, first of all, and there was no mockery here. Describing a critical situation. Yes, it's like a lot of people think Americans are scared chickens. They're losing their democratic voice, that kind of thing. To encouraging people to respond to it. Yes, this sounds pretty good. Condemning a questionable initiative. What does it mean, initiative? If you take initiative, you guys heard that a lot, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean to take initiative?
Like start something.
Initiate means to start, right? Take initiative means like you start a project, you take initiative and you start a project, or you do the groundwork for something, like you start doing it, right? Or you go out of your comfort zone and start doing something that you haven't been doing. So not this, it would be C here. Okay, hold in line 22. So let's go back. Line 22, hold. Okay. They cry that we Americans, we free Americans nourished on Magna Carta and the Declaration of Independence, hold these ideas, right? So I guess it's have these ideas, right? Just simple as that. Have these ideas. So possess these ideas. Okay, if you feel like we need to go over a particular question in more detail, you can just stop me, okay? And then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Based on the speech, it is it's most logical to conclude that Ike strongly objects to. Okay, what does he object to? So now, okay, I have a line reference question, okay? So what he objects to something. Okay, I think he objected to a lot of things. I mean, not one particular thing comes to my mind. So I should read this, okay? I should read this instead of instead of question 14 first, okay? So we did not talk about political leaders. That's something that you should know. This is totally irrelevant. Violations of basic human rights. I mean, if we were to, include everything that we've read, I do remember reading about concentration camps, and that, yes, you can make that logical inference and say, okay, like concentration camps and that kind of thing, yeah, it could be a violation of human rights, so why don't you leave this? Idealistic approaches. Well, he didn't talk about foreign affair at all, right? Inaccurate reporting of political events. Okay. Accuracy was not an issue. So I would say this is our only possible option. And if we were to go with this, I would need to stay in the vicinity of where that concentration camps line was, right? So I would go with B here. And for this one, where's that concentration camp thing? So here, right? So it's in about line 40. And in one of the answer choices, it says 42 to 43. So why don't we take a look at 42 to 43? Okay, 42 to 43. I mean a future when free men will live free lives in dignity and in security. It's okay. So it's talking in the opposite, but it's saying then if they like it's after him talking about this, right? So sometimes the line references are not going to be so clean cut, and this is actually especially so because this is a PSAT test. So the line references are not as clean cut as the actual SAT, but still, like we can infer that, like these are violations. And he says, as a commentary to this, no, we don't want these. We want a future when free men will live free lives, right? We want the basic rights. So B here and C here. Constitutes, line 52, constitutes. So let's go back, 52. Where do I see it? Okay, what constitutes an American? What makes an American, right? What is an American made of? That's basically what it is. How do we define an American? What constitutes an American? What motivates, not necessarily, it's not talking about motivation, it's talking about what makes an American. So I would say comprises here, right? Based on the speech, with which description of Americans would I most likely agree? Okay, so do we have a line reference? Yes, we do, right? So this one, again, it's pretty general. So what you need to do, read this first, right? Okay, and Description of Americans. So, I mean, before you start reading the answer choices, you could think of some potential answer choices, right? So, what thing would he say about Americans? Here, right? So you could refer back to this if you want, because if you chose to number all of this. But if you did not number this, then you're in kind of a trouble, because if you go back to the passage, you just have this long blob of I don't know, like 15 or 20 lines that you need to look through again, and that's what's going to eat up your time. So you should you should distinguish between these ideas when you were reading the passage. Okay, so let's take a look. Unwilling to trade freedom, wealth and security. We're not talking about wealth and security, right? Idolize past leaders. No, not. Americans fight to protect their families. Yeah, sacrifice, freedom and fight for freedom and no, fight for freedom here, probably here, or fight for a just cause. Well, anyway, so we did have that fight idea here. So this one is okay. Americans value position and pedigree above all else. Actually, these were one of the things that we X'd, right? So that's why we X certain things, right? This is not what Americans wanted, right? This is not what makes an American, he said. So C is the right answer. And now I'm just going to go to the line reference. So I want to choose an answer that has that fight idea in it. So it starts from line 52. Let's take a look here. So yeah, see, not the pedigree of his family. And anyway, so it's not 52 to 55. Not A. Next one is 54 to 56, right? Not this. Okay, so not B also, right? 60 to 62. An American is one who will sacrifice property, ease, and security in order that he and his children may retain. Yeah, right? So sacrifice all of these, possibly. Okay, well, let's take a look at 68 to 70 also. Okay, well, this one, freedom like peace is indivisible. We cannot retain our liberty if 3/4 of the world is enslaved. Now, if I have to choose, I would go with C then, because sacrifice, like that is more implied here if I have to make a choice. So I would go with C here. One major claim that Ickes makes in the speech is that Americans are threatened by, okay, so that's it. Americans are threatened by what? Okay, I don't know. But I know for a fact that leaders is not, and it's not a key word in the passage. We've just never discussed this. National pride also. Like, if anything, he's saying, let's have pride. I mean, I'm still inferring when I say that. But if anything, it would be the opposite of B. See, oppression and injustice abroad. Yeah. Do you remember the neighbor's fire? Yeah, so this one, possible. Citizens, no, they're not selfish. They're not selfish, okay? They're just scared kind of thing. So C is the right answer here. Okay, so any questions on this passage? Yeah. Okay, 16, let's take a look. Okay, which one did you choose here? A? Yeah, actually, okay, I'm sorry. I think I just blew past A. Americans are unwilling to trade freedom for... Okay, that actually would go better with C. Let's take a look. Who will sacrifice... Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so 16 should be A. Okay. American is one who will sacrifice property. Okay, so that would mean they're unwilling to trade, right? So it's two things that we're talking about here. American is one who will sacrifice these things for what? Rights, right? So this is more important. So in other words, they're unwilling to sacrifice that. I mean, unwilling to trade freedom for wealth and security. So A is right, actually. C could also be possible, but we don't have any line reference that refers to this directly. Like it's more relative. So A would be better here. Okay, I feel like we can do that last passage really quick. So we'll do this one first before our break, and then so this is by George H. Bush, right? So this one was the easiest, I feel like. We'll do this, and then we have that one passage that we didn't do before. So, and that one I feel like is more difficult. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, right? The one that starts off with "My lords and gentlemen" or something like that. Like we didn't do that passage last time. So let's start with this. America today is a proud free nation, decent and civil, a place we cannot help but love. Okay, all positive. We know in our hearts, not loudly and proudly, but as a simple fact, that this country has meaning beyond what we see, and that our strength is a force for good. Okay, so meaning beyond what we see. So it's one of these, right? So, I mean, there's only so much that we see from the outside, but actually there's something more to it. So he's probably going to dig deeper into this idea, meaning beyond what we see. But what have we changed as a nation even in our time? Okay, did we do anything? Are we enthralled with material things, less appreciative of the mobility of work and sacrifice? Okay, so two contrasting ideas here, right? Again, like the previous passage, right? Material things versus work and sacrifice, right? Nobility of work and sacrifice. But he deems these to be more desirable. It is implied, at least, right? My friends, we are not the sum of our possessions. Okay, so this one definitely is talking about material possessions, unlike the passage. I mean, we did mention material possessions, wealth and security, that kind of thing in the previous one. But here, yeah, he says, okay, we're not the sum of our possessions. They are not the measure of our lives. Okay, so he says, okay, this is not how we measure our lives, right? Possessions. It's not. In our hearts, we know what matters. Okay, so what is that? I want to hear about that. We cannot hope only to leave our children a bigger car. Okay, so I don't want to hear this though. I don't want, because this is just reiterating possessions, right? Possessions. We must hope to give them a sense of what it means to be a loyal friend, a loving parent, a citizen who leaves his home, his neighborhood and town better than he found it. Okay, so they want to make his home and neighborhood better. So material possessions versus this, right? The betterment of his community, of his or her community. What do we want the men and women who work with us to say when we are no longer there? Kind of saying, okay, so think about your legacy. That we were more driven to succeed than anyone around us, or that we stopped to ask if a sick child. Okay, so this is a rhetorical question. Do you want to do this? Do you want A or do you want B? Right? So how do you want to be remembered? That's his question, right? Do you want people to remember you as this person driven to succeed, or do you want to be that person who stopped to ask if a sick child had gotten better and stayed a moment there to trade a word of friendship? So do you want to be more lovey-dovey? Do you want to be more of a friend to people? Do you want to be more of a service to your community? Or do you want to be remembered as that guy driven to success, right? Okay, so it says, no president, no government can teach us to remember what is best in what we are. Okay, so it can't be taught. It can't be taught. But if the man you have chosen to lead this government can help make a difference, if he can celebrate the quieter, deeper successes. Okay, so I know this is Bush's inaugural address. So he's probably referring to himself, right? If he can celebrate the quieter, deeper success that we are made of, we are made not of gold and silk, but of better hearts and finer souls, right? Right? So he's acknowledging that, okay, so he doesn't want people to like criticize him saying like, oh, you know, like just because you're president, you think you can say all that. So he's kind of getting rid of that possibility by saying, okay, I know that you're not going to listen to your president. Like no president can tell you what to do, but I can kind of help make a difference. If I celebrate these instead of these, wouldn't that help molding molding their priorities and stuff like that, right? America is never wholly herself unless she is engaged in a high moral principle. Unless means this is necessary. You remember this, right? We need high moral principle. This is something that we need, right? High moral principle. We as a people have such a purpose today. Okay, we have a purpose. Okay. It is to make kinder the face of the nation. Okay, so, all right. So all the things that he's been talking about, like he's like, okay, no material, like it's not about material possessions. It's about friendship. It's about being kinder. It's about being gentler, right? The face of the world. My friends, we have work to do. Okay. Yeah, so he's saying, let's work towards this. The old solution, okay, so he said it for us. So I'm just going to say, okay, this is the old way, right? The old solution, the old way, was to think that public money alone could end these problems, right? I guess they were wrong, right? I mean, you can already sense that, right? But we have learned that lesson that is not so. It's not so. And in any case, our funds are low. We have a deficit. Okay, so these are potential facts that they can ask on a specific line reference question. So you can take note of that. When the passage is easy, that's usually what happens. When the passage seems like, okay, it just seems like he's talking about the same thing over and over again, then they can potentially ask you about these kinds of details that kind of stick out to you, right? We have a deficit, funds are low, we have more will than wallet. Okay, so will is high, but we don't have enough money. But will is what we need. Okay, so here we go, necessary. So what's more important here? I guess he's saying will, right? We will make the hard choices looking at what we have and perhaps allocating it differently. Okay, so it says differently, so it is some kind of comparison. There is some kind of comparison coming up. Maybe he's going to say, okay, in the past, we used money like this, but now we're not going to use money like that. We're going to use it differently, making our decision based on honest need and prudent safety. Okay, so this is what he wants to do from now on. And then we will do the wisest thing of all. We will turn to the only resource we have that in times of need always grows, the goodness. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, what do you think of this kind of speech? It's okay. Like you're, let's say you lost your job and you can't feed your family. And then you hear the president talking the inaugural address and he's like, oh, it's not about your wallet, it's about being kinder. I don't know, just asking. Okay, the goodness and the courage of the American people. I mean, what do these mean exactly? Like, I don't know. I'm not saying you should be thinking that when you're reading this essay passage. I'm just like, okay, like this is me as a person asking this guy, okay, what do you mean? Goodness and the courage. Well, what can an ordinary person do? Like, okay, Like you said, ask a sick child and talk to them. Like, okay. I am speaking of a new engagement in the lives of others, a new activism. Okay, new activism. Okay, so I guess he does have something to propose. Hands-on and involved. Okay. Hands-on, did we talk about hands-on? No? No? Did we do it yesterday? Okay, two days. Okay, so every day seems like the same to me. Hands-on is like, didn't I talk about an analogy? Like, okay, I mean, how do you hands-on? It shows up pretty often. So, let's say you're learning physics. Did I not talk about this? Let's say you're learning physics. Okay, like, how do you learn physics? You just like calculate stuff. Like you look at like vectors and you calculate stuff. But what would be a more hands-on way to learn physics? Okay, huh? Yeah, I talked about this example.
Yeah,
I talked about this exact thing. You guys heard this. You guys don't remember it? Okay, so I take a baseball bat and then hit the guy. I was like, does that hurt? And then if I accelerate it even more, okay, F equals ma. That hurts more, right? That's a more hands-on way to experience physics, right? Hands-on and involved, that gets the job done. We must bring in the generations, harnessing the unused talents of the elderly and the unfocused energy of the young. Okay, so that's I guess the new activism that he's proposing. I want to take note of this because this is the first concrete thing that he's mentioned so far, right? Because up till now, what was he talking about? Kinder, gentler, not material possessions, but, all these other things, like a deeper, quieter, whatever, right? For not only leadership is passed from generation to generation, but so is stewardship. What's stewardship? Yeah. So like you're in charge of something and you're taking care of something, right? So let's say, for example, your mom, they use this word a lot in the Bible, right? Stewardship. Okay, thanks for sharing. Yeah, like, for example, like let's say your dad gave you like a small plot of land, like and then he said, hey, do what you want with it. Do what you want with it, and then. But if you just leave it, and then like weeds grow out of it, and then you're not taking care of it, it's a mess. That's not good stewardship. If you, it's not yours, but he put it in your hands to do something about it. If you make like a pretty garden out of it, that's good stewardship, right? And the generation born after the Second World War has come of age. Okay, I have spoken of 1,000 points of light of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nations doing good. We will work hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, rewarding. We will work on this in the White House and the cabinet agencies. I will go to the people and the programs that are the brighter points of light, and I will ask every member to be involved. Okay, ask everyone to be involved. The old ideas are new again. Old ideas are new. What? What does he mean? Old ideas are new again because they are not old, they are timeless. Oh, okay. Oftentimes people forget these old ideas, right? They apply not only to a certain generation, but to all generation. It's timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression taking part and pitching in. So if you think about this, he really didn't say anything. I feel like, except that new activism, right? I mean, he does say like, okay, we're not the sum of our possessions, right? It's not. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as that guy who was driven to success, or do you want to be remembered as that person who helped that young child, right? It's all rhetoric, right? Anyway, So let's take a look at a few select questions. Okay, was there? I'll ask you guys. Was there a particular question that was kind of tricky here? Okay, so why don't you guys take another look at this? Then, okay, after the break, we'll if you have any questions on this, we will go over it. If you don't, I'll just tell you the answers, and then we'll move on to another one. Okay, so so 35. If you use the word high moral principle, would that create a calming tone? Is that calming? So just that alone, right? Calming tone that reassures Bush's listeners of the ease with which problems can be overcome. And this is actually untrue, okay? Ease. Do you think this is going to be easy? Okay, so why don't we go back? Why don't we go back to line 29? What does it say? Okay. My friends, we have work to do. If I have to choose, I would say it's the opposite of ease. We have work to do, right? If it's easy, he wouldn't say we have work to do. So it's not this. Okay, so let's actually look at the context. Okay, so he says America is never wholly herself unless she is engaged in high moral principle. We need high moral principle. We as a people have such a purpose today. It is to make kinder, and so it's saying we need to do this, right? We need to do this. That shouldn't calm you, right? If someone says we need to do something, okay, if your mom tells you you need to do your homework, is that so calming? Like, yeah. You need to get a high SAT score. That's so calming. If someone tells you we need to do something, it's not necessarily calming. But, okay, what about B then? What about B? Because it says it's an inspirational tone. Inspirational? Okay, so this one maybe. Okay, so think about this. Okay, inspiration. Maybe it's an inspirational tone that contributes to Bush's efforts at rallying listeners. Okay, so it's just saying he's just trying to inspire people. Well, okay, so he's saying we need this, but I wouldn't. Okay, well, you need to kind of think twice about this. Okay, so before you choose this, just consider A for a second. Okay, so what does it say? They create an optimistic tone that tempers Bush's warnings. Tempers Bush's warnings to listeners about challenges that lie ahead. Okay, so let's go back. So the challenges that lie ahead is the ones that he talks about next. What does he say? He says, hey, hey, we have a deficit. We have work to do. And he says, we have a deficit. We have more will than wallet, right? So he couldn't just jump right into this. He needed something to kind of serve as an introductory, like before this. Right? So he's saying, like, yeah, before we talk about this challenge, let's set up some goals, right? In order to do this, right? In order to do this, we should strive for, like the things mentioned here, right? High moral principle, and we want to make kinder the world. Like, these are all good things, right? We need to do this. And then he talks about, yeah, here's the challenge, right? We have work to do, and then he jumps into that, right? So it would be A here, right? Okay, other questions?
What was the answer for 36?
36 is B. Okay, let's take a look. There is a shortage of. So okay, so let's take a look. So it says there is a shortage of something. So we don't have something, but okay, so an easy way to think about this is, did he, what, okay. Okay, actually answer would be A here. Okay, sorry about that. The answer key is kind of messed up here. Yeah, because, okay. Political will. Yeah, A is correct. A is correct. He directly says we have a deficit, right? We have a deficit. So that just means we have a shortage of financial resources, right? Sorry. Yeah. 31. The answers. So 31 is D. 32 is B. 33 is C. 34 is A. 35 is A. 36 is A. 37 is A. Do we need to go over 37? Okay, so let's take a look at 37. What does it say? Characterizes himself as someone who will support. Okay, so I have no idea what's going to come. I have no idea. Then I just need to look through the answer choices. And, okay, so let's take a look. Government assistance for both the elderly and the very young. So remember that new activism that he mentioned, right? So that should pop up. That you should remember that. New activism, and then we talked about that, right? So this one, that's why it's possible, okay? Increased citizen involvement in community organizations. Okay, so it did talk about involvement, but was it citizen involvement? It was actually, no, the government's gonna be more involved in it, like that kind of thing. Business leaders who possess, I don't know about this. And okay, well, rugged individualism, not really. Self-sufficiency, for all Americans. No, it was like hard work. What was it like at the very end? Anyway, this thing. So A is directly here, right? I am speaking of a new engagement in the lives of others, a new activism, and then bring in the generations, harnessing the unused talent of the elderly, and then unfocused energy of the young, right? So that part. Okay, let's take a look at, what's that? My lords and gentlemen, that passage. So it's not from today's homework, it's from yesterday's homework. Okay, was this passage hard? Right. Okay, no comments. Okay, so it's by the king. Address of the king to both houses of parliament. Okay, so he's talking to representatives. King talking to the representatives. Passage 2. Richard Price, don't know who he is, but observations on the nature of civil liberty, the principles of government, and the justice and policy of the war with America. So it's on the war with America. That's a long title. Well, anyway, originally published in 1776, he was the British king when the British colonies declared their independence, formed the United States. This guy was a British political philosopher, doesn't give us any information. So it is about the colonies. That's all I know. Okay, so it says, my lords and gentlemen, he's addressing the representatives, right? He's addressing the representatives. He's saying, nothing could have afforded me so much satisfaction as to have been able to inform you, okay, so it's happy to inform, that the troubles which have so long distracted my colonies in North America were at an end, okay? So, I mean, this would have been really good for me, right? He's saying, you know, nothing could have given me more satisfaction than to say that the troubles had come to an end, right? And that my unhappy people recovered from their delusion. What is their delusion? That they want to be an independent country, right? That's their delusion. Had delivered themselves from the oppression of their leaders. Okay, this is how he thinks of them, right? Or at least this is how he's trying to frame it, right? They're being oppressed by their leaders, the colony's leaders. It's not the king. It's not the British oppressing the Americans. its their leaders, and return to their duty. But, so I would have loved to say that. But so daring and desperate is the spirit of those leaders whose object, whose goal, right? Whose goal has always been dominion and power. Okay, so he characterizes the leaders of colonies. They want dominion and power, right? So they're kind of using the situation in his view, or at least he says, right? That they have now openly renounced all allegiance to the crown, right? So they're saying, yeah, we're going to fight you, right? And all political connection with this country. They have rejected, with circumstances of indignity and insult, the means of conciliation. So he's just describing the situation. That so you when you're too busy reading, just snap out of it. Say, okay, so now he's just talking about what's happening right now, what the situation is, so they broke all allegiance. And there's no chance to reconcile with them, right? Held out to them under the authority of our commission, and have presumed to set up rebellious confederacies for independent states. Yeah, these are stuff that we all know, right? They made the Constitutional Convention to, not the Constitutional Convention, the Continental Congress to fight the British and that kind of thing, right? If their treason be suffered to take root, okay, so this might be a little bit difficult to understand. If their treason be suffered to take root, okay, be suffered by us, kind of thing, right? If they commit treason and that takes root, that's just what it means, right? Much mischief must grow from it. Okay, so treason, right? And then this is going to lead to a negative consequence, right? To the safety of my loyal colonies, right? So his colonies, I guess it includes all his colonies, apparently. So not just the North American colonies, but also the other British colonies, to the commerce of my kingdoms. So it's going to have a negative impact on all of these, right? And indeed to the present system of all Europe. So even all Europe, right? So it's going to have disastrous consequences, the treason, right? Them fighting the British crown. One great advantage, however, okay, so here's a new point, right? One great advantage, however, will be derived from the object of the rebels being openly avowed and clearly understood. Okay, so there's going to be one advantage. We shall have unanimity at home, founded on the general conviction of the justice and necessity of our measures. So he's saying, yeah, at least we'll all come together, right? At least we'll all come together in trying to put this down or trying to take control of this situation, right? In this arduous contest, I can have no other object, no other goal, but to promote the true interests of all my subjects. Okay, so like he's presenting himself as this benevolent king, right? So he wants to promote this, right? What does he mean, subjects? His people, the people that he rules, right? No people ever enjoyed more happiness or lived under a milder government than those now revolted provinces. Who are those now revolted provinces? This is the North Americans, right? The North Americans, they were the happiest and they were under the mildest government. So he's saying, I can't imagine, like they were treated so well, right? The improvements in every art of which they boast declare it, right? Okay, so, their improvements speaks to it. It's a testament to this fact. Their numbers, their wealth, their strength by sea and land, which they think sufficient to enable them to make head against the whole power of the mother country, are irrefragable proofs of it. Okay, so they're proofs of it. I'll just say it's proofs of it, right? So, they're so strong, right? The North Americans, they improved so much. Now they have so much power. And that itself is a testament to how well we treated them, right? How well we ruled them. my desire is to restore to them the blessing. I coughed and then you're just like, okay. I'm fine. Okay, it was just, it's just a reflex. My desire is to restore to them the blessings of law and liberty equally enjoyed by every British subject, right? So he just wants to bless them again and have them come under his wing again, right? Which they have fatally and desperately exchanged for all the calamities of war. What's a calamity? Yeah, something really disastrous. That like usually when people die, that kind of thing, that calamity, right? For all the calamities of war and the arbitrary tyranny of their chiefs, right? So this, right? This is to be contrasted with what he wants, right? Okay, so that was the king talking. So what was he saying? So he's trying to kind of sway the representative's opinion, right? Saying like, oh, you know, they're revolting. I don't know why. We were so nice to them, right? It's probably because their leaders, they want dominion and power, right? And their treason will have negative effects, not just on the colonies, but to our British Empire, right? So that's that, right? Okay, so passage 2, what does it say? Okay, so it's also written by a British person, right? Yes, he was a British political philosopher. Okay, so I don't know, you know? I mean, I don't know what's it going to be? Is he going to disagree with this? I mean, I don't feel like it because he's also a British person, but you never know, okay? You never know. And he does disagree if you've read this, right? What does it say? One cannot help indeed being astonished. So you need to be surprised at the virulence with which some speak on the present occasion against the colonies. Okay, so if you speak, I mean, he's surprised that some people speak of the present occasion, of the present situation against the colonies, right? Okay, so what do they say? For what have they done? Have they crossed the ocean and invaded us? All right, so this is a series of rhetorical questions that make his stance apparent, right? So what does it say? What have they done? What did the colonies do? Did the colonies cross the ocean and did they invade us? Have they attempted to take from us the fruits of our labor and to overturn that form of government which we hold so sacred? Did they try to attack us? Did they do anything so wrong? That's his point, right? So what did they do wrong, right? This cannot be pretended. Okay, so that's his point. So he doesn't agree with the king, right? He's saying, you know, they didn't really do anything so terrible, right? They're just fighting. I mean, this is me inferring, by the way, don't do this, but just to explain it. He's saying, you know, they're just protecting themselves. It's not like they crossed the ocean and they're attacking us, trying to overthrow our government, right? On the contrary, this is what we have done to them. Okay, that makes it really apparent, right? So we crossed the ocean and we attacked them. We tried to overthrow their government, right? We have transported ourselves to their peaceful retreats and employed our fleets and armies to stop up their ports, to destroy, right? So you kind of get it, right? You kind of get the gist. To seize their effects and to burn their towns. Would we but let them alone and suffer them to enjoy in security their property and governments instead of disturbing us, they would thank and bless us. Okay. If we let them alone and blah, 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 instead of disturbing us, they would thank us and bless us, right? If we just left them alone, you know, they wouldn't really do anything. And yet it is we who imagine ourselves ill-used. Yeah, abused. It is we. Like, we did all this, but now we think they're mistreating us, right? So that doesn't make any sense. That's what passage 2 is saying, right? So it's us that are in the wrong here. The truth is, we expected to find them a cowardly rabble. What in the world is this? What's a rabble? Huh? Yeah, it's a mob, right? So a cowardly mob who would lie quietly at our feet, and they have disappointed us, right? Okay, so that was our expectation, right? So again, expectation versus essence, right? But what did they do? They have risen in their own defense and repelled force, right? Okay, so what did we expect? Just, them being docile, just listening to us, doing whatever we told them. But they didn't do that. They defended themselves. They deny the plenitude of our power over them and insist upon being treated as free communities. Okay, so this is contrary to their expectation, right? They want to be free communities. This is what they expected, but it's not what it is, right? It is this that has provoked us and kindled our governors into rage. And now, because their expectations are overturned, they're mad. It has, however, been asserted that, it has been asserted that, you guys remember that passage? It has been asserted that, some say, right? So this is what other people say, right? This is his opponent's view. Even their good is intended by this war, right? So some people say, yeah, we're trying to do them good through this war, right? Many of us are persuaded that they will be much happier under our government than under any government of their own. So many people think they will be happier under our government, okay? And that their liberties will be safer when held for them by us than when trusted in their own hands. But obviously, I think he's going to disagree, right? It's presented as an opponent's view. Okay? And then it says, how kind is it thus to take upon us the trouble of judging for them what is most for their happiness, right? Is that do you call that kind, right? Judging for their own happiness, right? You know what I mean? I give you guys 10 passages in there. You guys, that makes you happy, right? That kind of thing, right? So is that kind? Judging for them, I mean, what's going to make them happy. Nothing can be kinder except the resolution we have forced to exterminate them if they will not submit to our judgment. What strange language have I sometimes heard? So he's just saying this is ridiculous. Okay? By an armed force, we are now endeavoring to destroy the laws and governments of America, and yet I have heard it said that we are endeavoring to support law and government there, right? So this is what other people say also, right? So you attack them, but you say, yeah, it's to support law and government, which is not the case, obviously. We are insisting upon our right to levy contributions upon them, and to maintain this right, we are bringing upon them all the miseries a people can endure. So we're bringing them miseries, and yet it is asserted that, opponent's view, we mean nothing but their security and happiness. Right? So he's just pointing out this real appearance versus essence. That's the essence of this passage, right? So he's saying, you guys are saying all of this, but is that actually the case if you look at it, right? Did they attack us? Why are you even mad? It's we who attacked them, right? You're reasoning that you're trying to support law and government there. By doing this, that makes no sense. How is that doing them good, right? Okay, so the argument for both of the passages pretty simple. The argument is simple, right? Both of their arguments. The language, a little bit on the harder, more difficult side. Okay, so let's go over some of the questions. Okay, so number 10. So primary purpose, what do you think? He's just trying to convince them that we should take them back, to fight, I mean, whatever, right? Inform his audience about the policies he has. Okay, he didn't talk about anything concrete, right? It's just his reasoning, right? They have rebelled against us, blah, blah, blah. How dare they, blah, 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 right? Convince his audience of the dangers of losing control. Okay, what he did mention one consequence of this, right? But I mean, this was a minor part. So I'm not so sure just yet. If I don't have anything better than this, I would say, okay, that could suffice. Justify his audience the need for action against the colonies, right? Yeah, so the passage as a whole is trying to do this, right? He's trying to say, yeah, we need to finally, this is going to bring us all to agree. We're all going to agree. And the good thing is we're now all going to agree and then put them back into order, right? That kind of thing. So this, I would say, is better than B. What about D? Notify his audience about recent developments. He did do this in the beginning also, right? He explained what's been happening in the colonies recently, like in the very beginning. So, but this and this, they're both minor parts, okay? What about this? Yeah, we talked about this a bunch, right? So this is goal, right? So A. 12. According to passage 1, what would happen if Britain failed to put down the rebellion in the colonies? So in that case, like a lot of disastrous consequences. So he did mention a lot of different consequences, right? So the empire itself would be threatened. All the colonies are going to suffer. The trade is going to suffer. So that kind of thing, right? So this would be D. Question that Price asks in lines 43 to 47 primarily serve to. Okay, so let's take a look at 43 to 47. So this was when his stance became very apparent to us, right? So he's saying, really, did they come and attack us? Why are we saying all of these things, right? Raised doubts about the king's fitness. He never mentioned the king, like, at all. What about B? Emphasize that the colonies have not harmed Britain. Yeah. Have they came across the ocean and did they attack us? Did they try to overthrow our government? Obviously, no is the answer to that question. And this is what he wants to convey. Reveal inconsistencies in Britain's action. It's not necessarily about inconsistencies. It's about how wrong it is, right? Highlight the ambiguous nature of the colonies. No, I mean, it's not. If we have to say anything about this, it wouldn't be ambiguous. It's pretty clear. They want to rule themselves, right? In context, what the words kind and kinder help create what kind of tone in passage 2? Okay, kind and kinder. So let's take a look. 70. How kind is it, right? Like you guys are saying, like you guys are trying to be kind to them, right? You guys are doing this to secure their liberty and that kind of thing. But ask yourself this question: how kind is it to judge for them what's most for their happiness? Is that something that you call kind, right? That's his tone. That's his sarcastic tone, right? So that's B. '15. Based on passage 2, how would Price most likely have responded to George's claim about the calamities of war? Okay, so I think I talked about this in our AM class, right? So whenever someone asks you, okay, so you need to be really careful here. It's weird. I don't know why. I mean, I guess, yeah, it does make sense, but it could be misleading, this thing. Most likely, how do you think, what do you think, how do you think they would have responded? That's the question. How do you think they would have responded? Most likely, right? The wrong way to go about this question is you saying, okay, so I think, and then you making you forming your opinion. That's a shortcut to the wrong answer. Do you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't. Okay, so if the passage said A, B, and then C. Okay, so and then the passage. Let's pretend like the passage said A, B, C. Then the question asks you, okay, what would the author of passage 1 most likely respond to something? And you would say, okay, since he said A, B, and C, I think he's going to say D. Do not do that. Okay, I'm saying do not come up with your own opinion. It might seem like the question stem is asking for your opinion. Do not do that. Just imagine yourself as a parrot. You're always repeating what the passage would say. So whatever, the answer is always going to be in the passage itself. It's going to be one of the points that he or she mentioned before. So just repeat that point, always, okay? So, I mean, I don't even need to go back to this. I don't even need to go back to this. I'm just going to go through the answer choices, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, is this a point that passage 2 made or no, right? That's simply what I'm going to do, at least initially, okay? Britain rather than colonies is the aggressor. This is something that he did in the very beginning, arguing that the colonies could not win No, he did not talk about anybody winning or losing. By citing the widespread opposition to war, no, we don't know what the British public thinks. I mean, if anything, like this could be the only person in Britain who's disagreeing. So we don't know about that. By noting that the colonists are not the first British subjects. Well, we don't know about other British subjects. We only talked about Americans. Totally irrelevant. So A, right? So I just need to choose an answer that points to this. Britain is the aggressor. So that would be the line reference, and that would be, let's take a look. Okay, so starting from here, right? We have transported ourselves to their peaceful retreats and employed our fleets and armies, right? So we are the aggressors here, right? So starting from line 49 would be the answer. So C. Next one, George would most likely say that Price's discussion of British views. So this one we do need to take a look because it's kind of complicated. He's like George would say, you don't take into consideration this, right? So let's most likely say that Price's discussion of British views in the final paragraph of passage 2. Okay, final paragraph of passage 2. Let's take a look. So what? All right, so it's quite long, right? So so this part was a lot of people said they would be happier under our government, right? And then he say, is it kind to judge for their happiness, right? And then he's kind of using that sarcastic tone. And then it says, by an armed force, we are now endeavoring to destroy the laws in government. Really? Really, yeah? Like we're trying to destroy the laws, but you're saying that we're trying to support the laws there. That doesn't make any sense, right? We're insisting upon a right to blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then what would George say to this? He would say, hey, have you thought about this? I think you're not thinking about this. So there's something here, okay? So A says monarchy. No, he never tried to justify monarchy. B, the colonies already have more freedom than they should. He did say they do have a lot of freedom, but I don't know if that's more than they should have, right? I'm not so sure about this. C says Britain intends for the colonies to eventually govern. No, he wants them to be their subjects forever. The leaders of the rebellion are authoritarian and power hungry. So this is a point not mentioned at all in passage 2, right? But this is mentioned in passage 1, right? Provides the best evidence that George holds the belief that Price describes in 65 to 69. Okay, so what's 65 to 69? Let's take a look. Many of us are persuaded that they will be happier under our government. So, okay, so I'm gonna go back to passage 1 and I'm going to ask myself, okay, at which point did George say that they will be happier under the British government? Okay. Wait. Okay, so I would think it's this part. No people ever enjoyed more happiness, right? So they were so happy and they were under such a mild government. So this part, right? So it would be D. Okay, any questions on this passage? Okay. What was that other passage? In considering the requirements, is it this one? Yeah, the Marshall Plan, right? Marshall Plan. Okay, so do you guys know about the Marshall Plan? What's Didn't you take US history? Sono, you took US history, right? You know what the Marshall Plan is? Huh? Oh, you forgot. Okay, the classic. That's classic. And so yeah.
What did we do to Europe after Europe got wrecked?
Okay, after Europe got wrecked, yeah. Okay. Why though? Why would they help them?
Like this is not an official knowledge I can, because I heard it from someone else. But like they were helping in the name of like public restorations, but then they're also planning to like gain international law because of the Soviet Union, and they're also planning.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so it like that. They didn't say it publicly. I mean, I'm not so sure about this either. But it was part of the containment, right? Containment meaning, after World War II, what is that? What do you call that era after World War II? It's the Cold War era. So during the Cold War, they're trying to gain their sphere of influences, like the Soviet Union, USSR, and the United States, right? So America wants like democracies established and free markets established, while Soviet Union wants communist states established. So what they feared is, since Europe got wrecked so badly, they might easily fall into communism because of their economic hardship. So they wanted to help them, like financially. That's the Marshall Plan. Okay, so let's take a look here. In considering the requirements for the rehabilitation of Europe, the physical loss of life and the visible destruction of cities, factories, mines, and railroads were correctly estimated. Okay, so we estimated that correctly, right? So there was a substantial loss. I mean, that's just my prior knowledge, but it has become obvious during recent months that this visible destruction was probably less serious than the dislocation of the entire fabric of the European economy. So it was less than what? It was less serious than the dislocation of the entire fabric of the European economy. What does this mean? Dislocation means what? I guess losing it in this case, right? So they didn't lose their economy entirely. So there's some hope for restoration. right? It's not that they lost like their backbone itself or anything, right? They didn't lose their main fabric, but you know, the destruction was visible, right? So that's what he's trying to say, right? The farmer has always produced the foodstuffs to exchange with the city dweller for the other necessities of life. What? Why are we talking about the farmer all of a sudden? Well, anyway, he kind of segued into something else. Maybe he wants to explain something, right? Okay, this is something that usually happens, okay? You know, like, let's say, for example, you know, let's say, for example, I say, you know, telling students when and where and how to study is slavery. Okay, so I made that statement. And then I would say, okay, what is freedom? Like I backtrack to that. Why would I do that? Because in order to justify my claim, I need to kind of start at my definition. I need to give out a definition of freedom first. And then move my way and say, okay, since freedom is this, and this does not correlate with this, then so it is, that's why I'm saying that that's slavery, right? So it's kind of backtracking. So maybe he's backtracking a little bit. He says, the farmer has always produced the foodstuffs to engage with the city dweller for the other necessities of life. Okay, so there are necessities of life, so other necessities of life versus foodstuffs, right? So this and this, right? Yeah, I mean, something pretty obvious. This division of labor is the basis of modern civilization, and that division is the basis. Okay. At the present time, it is threatened with breakdown. So this thing is about to break down, though. This is the basis, but it's about to break down. The town and city industries are not producing adequate goods to exchange with the food-producing farmer. Okay, so they don't have enough goods, right? Raw materials and fuel are in short supply. Okay, so we don't have a lot of this. Machinery is lacking or worn out. The farmer or the peasant cannot find the goods for sale which he desires to purchase. So we don't have enough goods. And so the sales of his farm produce for money which he cannot use seems to him an unprofitable transaction. So since we don't have enough goods, the farmer doesn't think, yeah, you know, like I'm not going to profit off of that. So what does he do? He therefore has withdrawn many fields from crop cultivation. Okay, so instead of using the plots for crop cultivation, what does he do? Using them for grazing. What's grazing?
Allowing cows to eat grass.
Yeah, so like, you know, kind of like having animals and just, you know, raising animals in that area. So instead of crops, they're just using it for grazing. Why? Because, you know, like they're like, oh, you know, maybe I don't have anything that I want to buy from these city dwellers, right? I might as well just go for self-sufficiency kind of thing, right? He feeds more grain to stock and finds for himself and his family an ample supply of food, however short he may be on clothing and the ordinary gadgets of civilization. So he can make a living, right? I mean, yeah, he might not have the clothes that he needs, but he's not going to starve, right? He's still going to eat, right? Do you guys get this? Yeah, okay. Meanwhile, people in the cities are short of food and fuel. Okay, so yeah, because they're not going to get food elsewhere, right? So the government are forced to use their foreign money and credits to procure these necessities abroad. Okay, so it's, do you see this chain? Okay, so do you guys remember that passage where we talked about like people coming to America, people like the poor people coming to America, and then them what is that? Becoming citizens, right? Useless plants. They used to be useless plants, but now by the power of transplantation, they have become men, you know, that kind of thing, right? That passage, you know, in that passage, we had a whole chain, right? The laws, they protect the people, and then the people work, right? and then by their work, they buy land, and then they become citizens. They had this whole chain, right? Similar here, right? It's this whole chain of reasoning, right? So what's the first thing that happens? When it comes to the necessities, like necessities that the city dwellers produce, the amount goes down, right? They don't produce a lot. And so what happens? The farmers say, okay, I really don't want to buy anything, right? Since I don't really want to buy anything, I might as well not use my plots for crop cultivation. I'm just going to have animals and graze them, right? So they go for grazing. And what does that mean? Food supply goes down, right? So if the food supply goes down in the cities, then what happens? Then governments need to borrow money, right? So this is what happens. This process exhausts funds which are urgently needed for reconstruction. Yeah, but we need that money for reconstruction because Europe is wrecked, right? So they need to use that money to reconstruct, but they can't reconstruct now. So that's like the very end. Reconstruction does not happen, right? Thus, a very serious situation is rapidly developing, which bodes no good for the world, right? So that's not good. The modern system of the division of labor upon which the exchange of products is based is in danger of breaking down, right? Okay, so what does he do? What did he do so far? He laid out the situation, saying, okay, it's a really bad situation, right? So all this chain happening, and this can't be good, right? Okay, the truth of the matter is that Europe's requirement for the next 3 or 4 years of foreign food and other essential products are so much greater than her present ability to pay that. She must pay that she must have substantial additional help. Okay, must have, so necessary. So this is something that we need, right? So they can't do this on their own. They need help, right? They need help. Or face economic, social, and political deterioration of a very grave character, right? Or else the consequences are going to be really, really bad, right? So what do we come down to? They can't reconstruct, and so we need help. They need help, right? Europe needs help. The remedy, okay, so now he's talking about the solution. So what is this? Problem solution, right? So the problem is this, right? This whole thing happening. Like, yeah, it takes a little bit of explaining here. So he did that, and now he's talking about the solution, the remedy. Lies in breaking the vicious circle. What's a vicious cycle or a vicious circle? Yeah, something bad that repeats continuously, right? I don't need to explain this, right? You guys know what it is? You guys sure? Yes? Okay. Vicious circle, and restoring the confidence of the European people in the economic future of their own countries and of Europe as a whole. Okay, so what's the remedy? We want to break the vicious circle, restore the confidence of the European people, right? Like this is the remedy, I guess. Restore their confidence, right? The manufacturer and the farmer throughout the areas must be able and willing to exchange their products for currencies, the continuing value of which is not open to question. Okay, so they need to be. This is elaborating on this, right? I mean, in short, it's restoring the confidence, but if you go into detail, it's about how they're going to arrange this, right? It is logical that the United States should do whatever, okay, should do, right? So this is kind of a prescription for the United States, right? They're saying we should do. I mean, it's logical. It's right that we do this, right? Should do whatever it is able to do to assist in the return of normal economic health in the world, without which there can be no political stability, right? So we need political stability, so we need to restore economic health, right? And no assured peace. Our policy is directed not against any country or doctrine, right? I mean, why mention this at all, right? Kind of 도둑이 제발 줘요, right? Against any country or doctrine, but against hunger, poverty, desperation, and chaos. They want to avoid this, right? So they want to get rid of this, right? Its purpose should be the revival of a working economy in the world so as to permit the emergence of political and social conditions in which free institutions can exist, right? Okay, so they want back in a working economy. Such assistance, I am convinced, must not be on a piecemeal basis. What is this? Must not be on piecemeal basis. I don't know exactly. Okay, so I don't know exactly as various crises develop. Any assistance that this government may render in the future should provide a cure rather than a mere palliative. What's a palliative? Anesthetic. Okay? You guys know what an anesthetic is, right? It's medicine that relieves pain, right? Painkiller. Well, not a painkiller, anesthetic, like just anesthesia, like machi, right? So we need this. We need a cure. I mean, if you don't know what this is, just don't. It's rather than something. So it's a contrasting idea. What you need is a cure. You just need to grab this and hold on to this, right? It would be neither fitting nor efficacious. It would be neither fitting nor efficacious for this government, like something that works, right? For this government to undertake to draw up unilaterally a program designed to place Europe on its feet economically. Okay, so it's not going to be fitting. It's not going to be efficient to design to place Europe on its feet economically. So we should not do this. This is the business of the Europeans. Okay, so it's saying, yeah, it's their business. We shouldn't come up with this program trying to restructure them. Like, we're not going to just, grab them and put them on their feet. Like, we're not going to do the entire thing 0 to 100 ourselves, right? The initiative, I think, must come from Europe. Okay, so this is what's necessary, right? Europe must come up with this. The role of this country, United States, should consist of friendly aid in the drafting of a European program. Okay, so we should rather be in a aiding position. We shouldn't be the ones fixing the entirety of the problem, right? European program and of later support of such a program so far as it may be practical for us to do so. The program should be a joint one, right? Okay, so I think I get the idea, right? So it's like we should help them. We shouldn't really do everything for them. That's not really going to help them. Okay. So is there a question that you guys want to go over on this passage? 29. Okay, so let's go look at 29. Wait. Significant contrast that Marshall draws in discussing the fundamental nature of an economy. Okay, so you should be able to sense in the very beginning, I mean not in the beginning, but from the question stem, that when it says fundamental nature of an economy, it's not talking about Europe, right? What is this talking about? Just an economy, like, right? So that would be when he was starting to explain about the farmers and what is that? Farmers and city dwellers. So that thing, right? So it would be A. rural and urban production.
Like, couldn't like raw materials and finished goods
No.
kind of be put into?
Because it's not that contrast. That's what you inferred. It's mostly food, so not necessarily raw material is more general in its scope. Do you remember this? Like it can't like it would be including too much stuff if we say just raw materials. Okay, if you guys don't, I'll give you the answers then. So for 28, if you didn't solve this, just write the answers down somewhere else and then make an attempt at least, and then grade it. Okay. So yeah, 37. Reasonably be inferred. Okay, so we can make a logical jump, right? So we can make a logical jump. It's not necessarily written verbatim in the passage. You can't just rephrase that. I mean, potentially yes, but maybe not. So you have that freedom. From the passage that Marshall believes the United States should. Wow, that's really it's really vague. I don't have any line reference questions. So okay, so provide food, machinery, and really, like do all of this. If anything, he said, don't do this, right? We don't want to be the ones putting them up on their feet. We don't want to do everything. We just want to help them. That was his point, right? So not this. Be frugal in its plans to revive the European economy. So is this what confused you? Okay, he didn't necessarily say, he didn't necessarily talk about how much we should help them. He was saying we shouldn't be too involved in this. They should be the ones leading it, right? We should be next to them, supporting them. So let's take a look here, right? They don't want to unilaterally come up with the program. This is the business of the Europeans, right? It should come from Europe. This is what he says, right? The role of the United States should consist of friendly aid, right? Friendly aid. So it's not saying, okay, we're not going to help you that much. We're just going to help you a little bit. He never said that, right? I mean, it's easy to imagine that. I know why. Right? I mean, I get it. I get why you could possibly think that, but it's never. They didn't say that, so you can't. That would be too much. But I mean, if there weren't any other answer choices, I would have gone with this. Okay. What about C? Help resolve additional European crises as they develop. No, if anything, don't do that. Defer to the Europeans in deciding on appropriate solutions. Yeah. So this, he said directly where. The initiative, I think, must come from Europe, right? So they should be the ones taking initiative, and they should be the ones saying, okay, can you help us do this? And then the United States say, okay, we'll help you do that, right? But they should be the ones doing the main work, right? 28C, 29A, 30B, 31C, 32B, 33C, 34B, 35B, 36C, 37D. Okay, any other questions? Okay, 34.
He said 33.
33, okay. Very serious, bodes no good, danger of breaking down. What is that? What kind of tone does that have? Did you choose A? Okay, so A says pessimistic tone. Okay. Okay. It's true that the wording here is pessimistic. The wording here is pessimistic. Serious, bodes no good, danger of breaking down, right? But so he's gonna say it's hopeless. Is that what he comes down to? Like he's just saying the situation. Yeah, they're done, right? Wrecked. They're done, right? That's kind of what it is, right? But he's saying, oh my God, this is very serious. It's no good. Like they're at the danger of breaking down. Europe is in the danger of breaking down. That's that earnest tone that it's talking about. So we need to help them. That's what he gets at eventually. So that's why it's C rather than A.
Why doesn't D work?
D, let's say exhausted, reflects international wariness with these situations. Okay, so you say, so serious. I just don't want to deal with it, right? Like that's exhausted tone that creates wariness. Like wary is it's not this wary, right? It's not this wary, right? It's wary. It means they're tired of it. They get rid of them already. Like we don't want anything to do with that. We're tired. It's not that, right? Okay, anything else? Okay, so for homework, why don't you guys do the, actually, just a second. Stick around for a second. True. Okay, do the next three passages, okay? Do the next three passages. But notice, okay? Sorry I don't have the page numbers here. So the passage that you should be doing so first one starts with it is clear that, right? The next one is today all of us do. And then next one is not black is black. It's fellow citizens, pardon me. Okay, bye.